So today in retarded politics in South Africa, actually quite a lot to talk about. And before I do get on to it, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to support the work that I do here, welcome to buy me a coffee. I mean, check the bags under the eyes. I really could do with a coffee. And okay, so let's get straight into it. So what exactly has gone on? Well, Ramaphosa at the weekend did a speech, and in it he says that he firmly declared South Africa's empowerment laws, particularly broad-based black economic empowerment, BBBEE, which he claims is here to stay. He says that he insists that transformation and economic growth are not mutually exclusive. Although I would say to you, Rama, whatever, if you actually looked at the data, like scientists do, where you look at data and see whether it's repeatable and whether it's had the results that you wish to have happened, the answer would be no. We haven't had economic growth, and transformation is still bull rubbish, because the individuals who have actually been transformed are all ANC cadres, not the average South African. So he says that the actual aim of redress is to redress historical injustices in ownership and control of the economy. This is the idea that the economy and the ownership patterns were all in white hands, and he wanted to, have more black ownership and more black economic participation. All of which I agree with, but, let's get on to it a little bit further. He says that in order to enable long-term inclusive economic growth through broader participation of black South Africans, women and youth, BEE was adopted. But you see, this issue of women participation constantly becomes a problem, because in the communist mindset, you need to do forms of segregation of the economy where you say, this is this, and you basically do top level up restructuring the economy as if the economy can be restructured in that way. And so what you find is the ANC want to do things like have 50% of females in construction work, even though women don't do construction, and 50% of males in laundromats, even though males don't do laundry. So overall, this type of mentality is, stupid. And then they'll complain that they can't get construction done because a lot of the construction companies won't be able to fulfill the quotas. I mean, this should be freaking obvious to anybody with a brain cell. Now, the reason that this all became really important for Ramaphosa to somehow assure all his loyalists that he wasn't betraying them was because of the whole Starlink and Elon Musk controversy, where the South African government said that because Elon Musk can't get a Starlink license without BEE compliance, that they would adopt this whole equity equivalent investment program and EERP, which would allow Elon Musk to satisfy BEE compliance without giving away actual equity in the company itself. Now, according to Ramaphosa, this wasn't new. It was something that had already been done and offered to other multinational firms such as Amazon, Samsung, BMW, whoever else. And he says the basic idea for an EERP is to allow multinationals to invest in socio-economic development instead of just giving equity stakes. And this obviously had all the ANC loyalists crapping their pants, because what they wanted to say is, does this mean we're going to lose our equity stakes, and are we not going to get the beneficiary bull rubbish that we've all just exploited for so long? And according to Ramaphosa, no, calm your pants. We know you want to eat at the feeding trough, and we're not going to stop that, because all the bull rubbish that we said before, it's about historical injustices and transforming the economy or whatever. But the reality is that the entire script is a lie. We all know it to be a lie. The only individuals that have been enriched by BEE are ANC cadres, who quite frequently don't actually deliver the goods on whatever that they've been enriched or transformed with. This is the problem with the economy. Also, the actual laws themselves are incredibly racist. Let's use an example of a child born in 2000. 8 years after the end of apartheid, right? So this child born in 2000, he's now 25 this year. Let's say he's gone through the education program, he's been in the New South Africa where BEE has been there his entire life, and let's say that, he goes to casino and he wins 15 million South African rands, and he wants to start up a Starlink of his own. So he takes that money, which he won at a casino, and he goes to invest it in a Starlink, And the first thing he's told by the South African racist government is you can't get the license unless you give away some of your equity to a previously disadvantaged individual. This individual grew up and was born in the New South Africa where the previously disadvantaged individuals had been awarded favors his entire life. And he now is stopped from any form of economic activity due to licensing criteria and equity stakes transfers. For what? You're going to say, wow, he benefited from apartheid. How? He was born in 2000. The entire era he grew up in was subject to BEE anyway. BEE's been there for his entire life, where these transformations were supposed to occur. Now, let's use the exact same script and say it's a black individual who grew up and was born in 2000, won the lotto and money, and he's going to set up a licensing company to do a Starlink of his own. Let's call it a Sparklink for South Africa. Well, he doesn't have to give away the equity. So the white guy is disadvantaged economically and the black guy isn't. That is racist, you stupid clown. Why do you not understand this? Now, this entire argument was actually discussed by the ANC a number of years ago, where they said, at what point in time do you say individuals no longer have to be transformed if they're born after a certain sector because they weren't actually disadvantaged? But according to the ANC, well, never. Because the ANC uses BEE rules as a grift, despite the fact that international investors argue time and time again that these policies inhibit competition, that they stop them from actually investing in the country and growing their economy because of these policies. But according to Ramalaya, well, it's fine. We're not gonna let go of these. The policies are here to stay. And the policies aren't here to stay because he believes in them. They're here to stay because he doesn't want to upset his loyalists, his unionists, his funders. He doesn't want to upset the gravy train that is the ANC policy. Just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So let's get on to the second news story of today, and to be honest, a really important one. And this is the fallout between the ANC and the DA. Because the DA is escalating pressure on the ANC over its corruption scandals with its ministers. And they've laid criminal charges, well, against the higher education minister for allegedly lying to Parliament about SETA appointments. Now, you may recall this is the clown who, when asked how she nominated and appointed the SETA appointments, she said, "Go really." So this individual apparently falsely named a legal advocate who was apparently part of an independent panel that approved ANC-connected appointments, which she later backtracked and claimed was a misunderstanding, that these ANC-connected appointments, oh no, that wasn't her, even though it clearly was. Now, the DA is also targeting the Human Settlements Minister and the Deputy Water Minister for alleged misconduct. Now, you will recall that the DA gave Ramaphosa an ultimatum, 48 hours, to fire all these ANC corrupt ministers, and Ramaphosa refused because, let's be honest, Ramaphosa is just as corrupt as the rest of them. You know, Mr. Palapala himself is not going to fire his loyalists who may stage a revolt or a coup against him, even though they are as corrupt as all hell. We've seen this in numerous areas where, as the ANC always says, it would not want to fracture the party. Instead, they'd like to be very loyal to the corruption accused, because that's the mode of operation of the ANC, I suppose. In any case, this prompted the DA to suggest that it would withdraw from the national dialogue and threaten a motion of no confidence. And they also said that they would refuse to support departmental budgets that came from implicated ministers. Now, you will recall from over there yesterday, the ANC said, well, they're not going to approve the DA's budgets either because, you know, it's tit for tat now. Well, in any case, that line around the motion of no confidence has now become very important, because now they've pulled that out of the hat and reminded everybody, including the ANC, that a motion of no confidence is actually the tool that gets the Ramaphosa kicked out of office, and then that's it. His time as president is done, because remember, he served 2 terms. Well, the actual rhetoric is ramping up, and there is a reason for that. I mean, Helen Zille came out and said that actually the idea of a motion of no confidence was not just an idle threat. She would actually do it, she says. But you see, the problem is that the DA is likely to need its own opposition parties and defectors from the ANC in order to actually get the numbers. Yes, they could go for the MK party, and there are suggestions that the DA is negotiating with the MK party and the EFF in order to get those potential numbers, but they need more than that. And Malema today said that actually the DA joined a corrupt marriage, and if they really don't want to be part of the GNU, they must quit the GNU if they can't take orders from Ramaphosa. So they said that basically you're on your own, like don't come to us for help. Now the Patriotic Alliance and Al Jamar have actually defended Ramaphosa and pledged to block any motion of no confidence. And that's really important to note, because there have been suggestions in the past that said parties are nothing more than splinter cells of the ANCs and controlled opposition. And things like this do give credence to that suggestion. And you can let me know what you think in the comment section. But in any case, you see, the problem at the moment now, where we are today, is that a motion of no confidence, if raised by the DA, is probably unlikely to be successful. And so all it would do is just irk the ANC and cause a kerfuffle with no real positive outcome. Now, this has led some analysts, such as Carol Patton, to suggest that the DA is a bit like Trump, in that whenever they make these onerous policy suggestions, they always check out in the last moment. And this is actually how the DA is now starting to be seen, because the likelihood of the DA leaving the GNU is actually very low, because the DA and the ANC, their centralist coalition, if you want to call it that, is still the most stable governor's option for South Africa. And it's one of the things making sure that the rand and the economy doesn't flat out collapse, even though there are signs that both are now under significant strain. Now, you see, the other side of this is that both parties do actually benefit from the arrangement. The ANC avoids the EFF's radicalism, and the DA maintains some form of national influence. The idea that the ANC would side with the MK party, that's bull rubbish. That's not going to happen. Those two parties are unlikely to get on. Ramaphosa and Zuma cannot coexist. Now, if Ramaphosa gets kicked out and Zuma reverse takes over the ANC, it would basically spell the end of MK. They'd amalgamate the two parties, and Zuma would be in charge of the country again. But Zuma's already served 2 terms, so he can't be president again. The net result is that the two parties just cannot coexist. Now, the national dialogue itself is being seen as a political showpiece. It's not really a real economic engine for reform. It's likely to just be the ANC's way of using government funds in order to campaign for itself for the next elections. And despite the DA saying that it would have no involvement in the national dialogue, John Steenhuisen says that he will be involved. So now one has to ask the question, John, my boy, are you still the leader of the DA, or have you migrated to the ANC? Because this would suggest that you're just an ANC stooge now, or an ANC loyalist. So maybe just make the move. In any case, these are all just my opinions. Do let me know what you think in the comments section below. On to a very final news story, and that's the news story of Elon Musk and Trump, and the two are having yet again another public spat, this time over subsidies, with Donald Trump claiming that Elon Musk has had more government subsidies than any human being in history. And he suggested that without US support, Elon Musk would have been forced to close shop and return to South Africa. Yes, the prodigal son would have come home. And according to him, the reason he's making these suggestions is because Elon Musk's electric vehicles get around a 7,500 EV credit every year, because of the green agenda. And we're trying to push this green agenda, which, as you'll know, Trump doesn't agree with. So Trump says that he always made it known to Elon Musk that he didn't agree with EV vehicles, and he wanted to get rid of the subsidies to them. He says electric vehicles are fine, but they're not for everybody, and you shouldn't be forced to own one. And so he says the government wants to reduce those EV credits. Now, suddenly Elon says that Trump is a dictator and whatever else, so the two are feuding. So Trump has suggested that DOGE, the department that Elon created, should actually investigate the credits that Tesla receive in order to save the government money. He says if we did this and we actually got rid of the tax credits, we'd save an astronomical amount of money. And so he's ordering DOGE to investigate Tesla. Yes, these two are really not seeing eye to eye anymore, and it's really kind of amusing to see. In any case, do let me know what you think in the comments. Until tomorrow, bye.
The refugees that nobody wanted. So on October 7th, Hamas stormed into Israel, slaughtering men, women, and children, as we all know. And then they disappeared back underground into the tunnels that they built beneath homes, schools, and hospitals. And everyone knew how they operated. Hamas was buried inside civilian life. It was no secret. That was its plan. So when Israel responded, like any other nation would, the world already knew what that would mean. Civilians would suffer because Hamas made sure of it. And as we entered this war, world leaders stood in front of cameras and said, Israel has a right to defend itself. But the moment that Israel did, they turned around and cried, genocide, massacres, dead bodies, starvation, as if they hadn't seen this coming. So if you really care so much about dead babies, starving civilians, and human rights, here is the real question. Where were the refugee corridors? Why weren't people allowed to leave? Why was Gaza sealed shut? Palestinians have their own UN agency. It's called UNRWA. They get more money per refugee than any other refugee in the world. And yet UNRWA has no plan to evacuate these civilians. There was no pressure on Egypt. There was no airlifts. There was no safe zones. There was nothing, just silence. And Egypt didn't just close its border. It built more layers onto it. There's 7 total layers right now that are dividing Egypt and Gaza to make sure nobody gets out. The Arab world? Shh. Quiet. The UN? Quiet. The media? Oh, they're loud. They're for sure loud. But only when it comes to blaming Israel. Because this was never about saving lives. It was about using their deaths, these civilian deaths, to smear the one Jewish state. It's all theater, it's all propaganda, and everyone played their part. So let's be honest here, okay? If you accuse Israel of genocide, if you cried over dead children, but you never once demanded refugee evacuation, never asked why Egypt sealed its border, never held UNRWA accountable, then the blood is not on Israel. The blood's on you.